Ladies and gentlemen, the following is another splendid episode of the Wrestling Fans Podcast, Ringside Society. In one corner, we have the greatest thing on God's green earth. No, we're not talking about money, Mary Jane, or Popeye spinach. He is the trickle dart of Ringside Society and Delaware's greatest American hero. It takes two to make a thing go right. He is Rob Bass, and you are not. And in the second corner, we have that ocean crossing, straight up Boston, flight catching, shot glass snatching, always positive, life is great, repping 592, living in the 718, no cap, straight facts, the worldwide starboy, Remy Blue. And our special guest tonight is a young woman who is making her way in the world of professional wrestling as a commentator for one of the newest all women's promotions. That's right. They've had a lot of interesting people down there in Alabama. And I'm talking about Belladonna, the Belladonna division. Shout out to Casey Dillon, who we had on our show. And not only that, she is also a fellow podcaster. That's right. She actually is the creator of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. Everybody, welcome to the show, Queen Stephanie Hardy.
Hey, I'm happy to be here finally.
Yeah, we've been meaning to have you on for a hot minute. It's just that like I tell people, I don't know if you read comics, but I'm like Professor X. Like whenever I go into whenever he goes into that room, it's not a matter of if he could find a mutant, but um, you know, who he wants to help first, or who he should reach out to first. Not who he
Hmm.
wants. I'm sure he'll help everybody, but who he should reach out to first. That's pretty much how it is with not just me, but with us here at Ringside Society. And but we finally had you on, and I gotta say, I know it's a few months late, but kudos on getting that position with Belladonna, the Belladonna division. Um, we're very happy for you, and we know that you're killing it right now. Y'all have had, I think, two or three shows right now, right? Since
Yeah, we've basically had three, actually, yeah, three shows. It was the first show that we had was last August, and it was Genesis, and then we had Genesis 2, and then we had Exodus in Illinois. And basically it's just been a really fun ride being a commentator because I had never really commentated before because I was a podcaster first. And then I'm also co-host Women's Wrestling Talk as well. So it's just like also doing those two things, but then commentating is like the newest thing, but it's still enjoyable nonetheless. And we have an amazing crop of women down here in Gadsden, Alabama, and everything. So it's really amazing to watch this promotion grow and be a part of it, and be a part of the change that is so needed in women's wrestling. It's great. I love it.
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, I'm gonna stray away from the path we normally take because I'm just a little bit. I'm gonna stray from the path. So, Belladonna Division is located in Gadsden, Alabama. Alabama is actually the South, right?
Yes.
So,
Yep.
from I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's the dirty, dirty. Yep, we're the South, right in between Mississippi and Georgia.
Yeah. So, I actually had. So, with that being said, many people have this whole thing that women, this old Southern thing that women shouldn't do certain roles. They should pretty much be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen, which and that's not how I grew up. I grew up in a single female home. Um, you know, and I mean, my dad was around, but he wasn't around. I mean, I know I can definitely talk to him anytime, but I pretty much grew up in homes that were ran by, we were females, the females head of the household. But how would you say Belladonna has? And this is, like I said, this is not a knock because I love female wrestling. You know, I've been pushing since 2013 for the WWE Women's Tag Team titles to come back. But how would you feel? How in your opinion, do you think that the Belladonna division had in a state like in a place? Because I mean, Delaware, New York, it's pretty accepted. It's pretty much accepted. California, but do you think that in Alabama, being the where it's at, do you think it's been greatly accepted, or? you know, is it still more mileage to cover in terms of it being accepted and being considered, because like I said, it's from what I've heard. I mean, I don't know, I never lived in, I mean, unless you want to count North Carolina, where I was stationed at as part of the South.
Mhm.
But do you think that it's been accepted by those that have lived there um for years and are wrestling fans, or do you think that or do you think that it still has a ways to go?
Well, I can say this for all the shows that I have commentated for, they have basically sold out in the 300 arena in Gadsden. They have sold out. So the crowd varies, between ages, and it seems like they varies between the ages of like maybe 20s, like early to late 20s, all the way even until 60s and 70s. Like there are elderly people who come to our shows too. So I can say since we've started the Belladonna division, we've had amazing audiences that have accepted, women's wrestling because, of course, they're exposed more so to the mainstream part of wrestling. But then when they come to independent shows like that, um, they're coming to sort of expect, a little bit of what they do see on TV, but just a little bit different. So I can say since the Belladonna division has started, there's been a great amount of support, and we're just looking to grow more and more because we just started last year. So the sky's basically the limit at this point in there, and it proves that there is an audience for women's wrestling down here in Alabama. And we have multiple wrestling promotions down here in Alabama that do mostly comprise of men, but when they do include women's action, it is greatly appreciated. So wrestling is growing more and more here in the state of Alabama, and I'm really glad that it is.
That's great to hear, as well as, and like I said, y'all have a stacked lineup, and I actually ordered it was Genesis, the one where Cassandra Golden actually won the Forbidden Elegance title. I think
Yes,
that
that was coronation actually. Yeah.
coronation. Yeah, my mistake. I
No,
actually
it's okay.
I actually ordered that on Fight. I was like, yo, that's gonna be lit. I'm gonna check that out. And like I know I'm probably gonna get crucified by this, but I don't normally order pay-per-views on Fight. They're
Mhm.
like it's every once in a bloom, but I was like, this is Belladonna. This is something about this one. I'm gonna check it out. And I actually ordered it, and yeah, it was really good stuff. Y'all definitely put in great work as well there too. But yeah, I'm glad to see that it's actually, Alabama's actually getting a bit of a wrestling scene. There's promotions down there. Hopefully it grows even more because you got Alabama, you got Georgia. That it's always great to have like wrestling all over. Because you know it's just a great thing. Because you don't have to go one state over like, oh snap! Wait a minute. What's in my area? Oh, that's here. That's right here. It's right around the corner. That's a ten
Mhm.
minute drive away. I'm in there like swimmer, man. I'm
Right.
so yeah. So that's great to actually hear as well. But let's dial it back a bit, man, because I got some stuff I gotta ask you, man, about that whole even the Empower thing. I saw you at Empower enjoying yourself, but we're gonna touch on that a bit later. But
Yeah.
I gotta ask, so how did your fandom for professional wrestling start? What was the match or main event that you saw, or who was the uncle or auntie or relative that you saw watching wrestling and you were curious as to what they were watching?
Well, I do talk about this a lot, but basically, my fandom started with my dad. He was the one who watched wrestling the most when I was growing up. Like he was the person who would come to either his house or my grandma's house and tape WCW and WWF at the time back to back because of the Monday Night Wars. And then of course at that time I didn't know what was going on because I was just 4, and when you're a child, you really just don't know all the ins and outs of what's going on behind the scenes and stuff like that. So I just walked in one day and just saw him, watching wrestling, and it just so happened to be Goldberg versus Hulk Hogan for the WWE, for the not the WWE title, I'm sorry, the World Heavyweight title. and this was when Goldberg was on his winning streak at the time. And I just asked, who those two guys were, and my dad told me, and I basically sat there and watched it the entire time and didn't move. So basically, ever since then, I've just been, into wrestling. He started taking me to wrestling events, when I got a little bit older, of course. And it just never ended after that point. Like, me and wrestling have always been connected in any way, shape, or form. And then my grandmother also watched it before him. So it's been a generational type of thing. And then my sister watched it a little bit, but then she grew out of it. But she's still able to have conversations about wrestling because she was exposed to it because of my dad and my grandma. So that's basically where I got it from.
Man, that would have been cool if your sister was actually still watching. Man, I could see it now. The Hardy Girls podcast or the Hardy Sisters podcast. HSP in the house, you know what I'm saying? And y'all just or if y'all both on comedy, like are on like not comedy, my apologies, commentary for Belladonna's. I can imagine
Oh
y'all going back
man.
and forth and da, 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 and y'all be like, oh no, she didn't. Oh yes, she did. You know, um, yeah, but that's pretty awesome that you actually got to see it during the whole Goldberg streak thing going on. That was a very crazy era, probably the craziest era in professional wrestling. Luckily I was 15. I'm an old man. I was 15 when that actually when that era started. Well, actually 14. Yeah, I was 14 when the era started, which was 97.
Hmm.
I look back at that time and I was like, man, because I was watching since I was like 6 going on 7. And I was like, man, it's a good thing I was a teenager at that era because I don't think I could have watched that. I don't think my auntie would have want me watching guys going, suck it. Or, Sable coming out, having a bikini competition, taking part in the bikini competition, and she's not wearing a bikini top, or, Val Venus getting, I guess, castrated by Kai and Tai. Yeah, it was a bunch of wild. Even Rob is shaking it. Rob, you can't really shake your head though, bro. You went to ECW during that time.
Oh, I know. My parents were like, "Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah, watch it. You're good."
You can't really shake your head at that because that was like PG compared to the stuff that ECW did. Geez, I tell you.
Yeah,
Oh
there's
yeah,
literally
that was
some
pretty
there's
extreme.
yeah, there's some guests from ECW. If we ever get on here, I'm literally gonna have to apologize to them because of what I've yelled to them as a fan or whatever. Because that crowd was just awful, man. We were just yelling the most crazy stuff. Oh yeah, I'll definitely have to be like, I'm sorry. I apologize. I need that good karma.
You might have to one day because I know a couple of ECW guys. I mean, not the big ones, but ones that have been there. Um, yeah, but yeah, that was a crazy time in professional wrestling, and
Hmm.
but it was enjoyable. It was enjoyable. It was memorable, and yeah, it was definitely wild. So, did you growing up? Did you ever get to go to any of the wrestling shows like WB or WCW or Impact or any of them?
Yeah, I only went to WWE shows because right around the time my dad actually started taking me to wrestling events, WCW had been purchased. So I believe it was around 2000 or 2001 when dad started taking me to WWE events. And it was the first WWE event I remember was SmackDown. And I remember like it was around the time like The Rock was still there and everything, and I bought like an inflatable, well, not an inflatable bull, but kind of like a styrofoam bull that you could put your hand in and sort of wave around like a sign. So that's when he started taking me, and I've been going to wrestling events pretty consistently since then. Like we've been to at least, I would say maybe at least 12 events, because some at least more than 12 events, at least 20 events at a time, because in Birmingham, which is where I'm originally from, they have so many live events and so many SmackDowns that come to town, and even a few Raws have come to town and everything. So I've been to a number of wrestling events, and I've even been to a WrestleMania. It's the one that wrestling fans collectively hate as a whole, which is the one in Atlanta, which is 27. But I don't care because that's mine. WrestleMania. I don't care what anybody says. Because I can still say that I've been to one. But basically, I've just been going to wrestling events my entire um preteen, like from the age of 10 all the way on. So I've never stopped going to events. I still go to them to this day and still have fun at them.
WrestleMania 27. Rob, remind me. I might need your help on this one. I'm getting old. My memory's kind of bad. So I can only remember John Cena versus The Miz with The Rock as a special guest referee.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, The
That was the
Rock
one I
was
was
the
gonna say.
Yeah, The Rock was the host of that WrestleMania, so he wasn't the special referee.
Okay.
But he did interfere in the match because that started the Rock and John Cena feud for the next year. And then there was also Alberto Doria versus Edge for the World Heavyweight
Right.
title. Yeah, and that was where Edge actually wrestled his last match before he retired the first time.
Yeah.
So that was pretty heartbreaking to kind of come home a week later and then he says he has to retire after we saw him wrestle. And that was also the one where it was a mixed tag, I believe, with John Morrison and Snooki and Trish Stratus and a team. So yeah, that's where all that stuff happened, like at that WrestleMania. So yeah, a lot of people hate on it or whatever. And Cody Rhodes was there, and he fought Rey Mysterio too. So yeah, that's what happened at that show. But a lot of people hate on it a lot because they feel like it was like one of the worst cards ever. But I don't care; it's mine. So
No, it wasn't
Was
that bad.
was Taker versus Triple H that one?
yeah, that was the
Okay,
that
okay.
was the first in that series because they fought the next year too. But yeah, they fought in that one too.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. I mean, nah, it was. You know what was worse than that one? WrestleMania 25. That one was horrible.
What happened in 25? Wait, oh wait, that was the
That was the
25th
one in Dallas
anniversary one.
or Houston, I think.
Ah,
That was where Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy fought. And the only
yeah.
the only two things I could remember, or three things I could remember, were Jeff Hardy um doing the leg drop over doing the alley oop over the ladder and to do a leg drop onto his brother. He actually lost that match. And well, Jeff Hardy lost that match. Matt won it. What was the other one? Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker, and Shawn Michaels
Yes.
entrance where he came down in white,
Uh-huh.
and
And
then
Undertaker came from beneath the floor from hell. That was cool.
you had what was the other one? Oh, the Diva. Oh, that Divas Rub Battle Royal pissed me off.
Yeah, because that was where Santino became Santina and became Miss
Right.
WrestleMania. That was weird.
And no offense to drag queens, 'cause I know this is cancel culture and y'all are ready to crucify anybody. No offense to anybody, but I did not want to see Santino in drag, out there. I'm sorry. I mean, I enjoyed seeing the nostalgia of seeing several people like, Trish Stratus. I can't remember who. I know it was Divas in the past and the present.
Mhm.
But to see Santino go out there as Santino Marella and actually like just I feel like he stole that moment and it shouldn't have been stolen. That was a moment that should have been left alone. If he wanted to do that, he should have done that on another segment on another show. He shouldn't have done that on that show. And I personally did not like that. But
Yeah.
there was the Legacy and Triple H. That was yeah, right, yeah, that was the one. I remember that around that time they started a feud. Randy Orton started a feud with Triple H again, and he had
Mhm.
Yasi and Cody on his side. That was a pretty good one. But yeah, that was yeah. Not to digress, that to me that was worse than WrestleMania 27. WrestleMania 27 was pretty good.
Yeah, but like when you look at various wrestling sites and wrestling lists and stuff like that, like they usually list 27 as one of the worst ones ever. And it's just funny to me because I'm just sitting there and whenever I look at stuff like that or watch videos where they say that, it's just kind of like this is kind of hard to hear because I was there and I had fun either way. So I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's those lists and so on. I mean, that's based off of their like opinion. That's their opinion they're entitled to. It's not my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think WrestleMania 25 was the worst one I ever saw.
And then
Uh,
plus I was just 17 years old. Like when you're 17, you're not and you're at a WrestleMania as a young wrestling fan, you're just there to enjoy yourself. Like you really don't care about the quality of the card and all that other, all the other insider stuff.
yeah,
Cuz back then I wasn't really an insider. I was just a fan and I was just happy to be there and have that experience, cuz that's every wrestling fan's dream. It's the Super Bowl of wrestling. So to be there was just an honor, in and of itself. So I kind of just, don't really care a lot about the negative about that people say. I just try to, focus on the positive. Like I was at a WrestleMania. So that's what I try to focus on.
yeah. Actually, I went to the following WrestleMania, WrestleMania 28, which is in Miami.
Ooh,
And I was living in Fort Lauderdale, Florida at the time, and Fort Lauderdale is like right next door to Miami. So I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna go check it out and see what it's about. And let me tell you, it was like I always keep saying this whenever I bring this up. There's no WrestleMania weekend. There's WrestleMania week, and it's like you take some
right.
drug, and it's like you're on a wild. I don't do drugs, but I'm just saying it's like you take a crazy drug or whatever, and it takes you on a wild ride, and then by the end of WrestleMania, the next day you're like, whoa, what happened last week? That was I did this, I did that, I was over there, I was over there, I met this person and that person, and and if you take pictures, you look at it as like, wow, like that was some week last week.
Yeah, that's basically like what it's like. Like so many people, so many pictures, so much to do in so little time, and you're just sort of hung over.
Yeah, yeah, that's how it was. Yeah, but I'm glad I did it. I have one more wrestling event to see for WB, and that's Royal Rumble. And after that, anything else is just because I want to go. Because I mean, I've always made it the big four my goal. I mean, once I saw SummerSlam, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to get the other two. And I got
Hmm.
Survivor Series last year when it was here in Brooklyn. So Royal Rumble's the next one, and that's it. But but so now you're doing the Hardy Wrestling podcast. How did that start for you? Like, what made you decide to start that great podcast? And you've had a lot of impressive people on there as well. How did it start for you?
Well, the Hardy Wrestling podcast started from a necessity that I had. I used to be a part of a Facebook group full of wrestling fans, and I was an administrator of there. But then some stuff happened where I decided to sort of take a little bit of a break from it, and then when I came back, I wasn't an administrator anymore. And basically after that, I didn't necessarily take that well because I had put so much work into it and everything, and I thought me taking a break would be respected, but it wasn't. So once I left and basically just after that point, I didn't have anywhere to really put all of my thoughts um on wrestling and all of my feelings on certain things. And I couldn't and I just didn't know what to do at that point. But then I remembered how there was an idea to start a podcast with them, but it never happened. So I decided, since I still had some of the podcast software on my phone, that maybe, I should start one. And this was in February of 2020. So this was before the pandemic and all of that. So everything had happened, during the first part of that year, and the Royal Rumble had happened, and I just remember just having so much to say about everything that was going on. Drew had won the Royal Rumble that year. Charlotte had won that year, and there was just so much to talk about. So I decided to start the podcast, and my first episode was like maybe 30 minutes. But I just decided, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm just going to have the courage to do it and just go ahead and jump out and just do it. And I did it. And then I started, crafting more of an outline as to how I want the episode to flow and what I want to talk about, like news and, or sometimes I do recaps of different shows. Or like talk about specific subjects of like stuff that went viral, over the course of the week, or just doing interviews or whatever. And that's just how it started coming together. Like I just wrote it down and then that's just how it was. And I just consistently kept going back because I always knew I would have something to talk about. Because the thing about wrestling is it's not like other sports where it just ends at a certain point. Wrestling goes on all the time. So with wrestling going on all the time and with it being no off season, there's always something to talk about. So I try to release an episode at least every week or every 2 weeks or so. And it's been going good so far. And I really love doing it. And I just didn't but the thing is I didn't expect anybody to listen to me. Because I thought all the people in my life who do listen to me is because I'm in their lives and they love me. I didn't expect anyone, or I didn't really expect a full on like big audience or something like that, because people who start podcasts usually are people who already have a following. I don't have a following. I'm just an ordinary person. But just the idea of me starting it, really surprised me in the sense of how many people are actually watching you do what you do and they actually think it's cool. So it's been great.
Yeah, it's actually it's funny you mentioned that because I thought the same thing too. Like I was like, yeah, people might not even listen, they might not even watch, but I'm like, let's just do this for fun. And I mean, we've had a pretty decent following. I'm not gonna say how many followers we have. We've had a pretty decent following, and I'm like, wow, I guess people really do care about what we have to say. And that was like over time and whatnot. And yeah, it's I would say like once you have the passion, you're good. Everything else falls into place. Once you have the passion, it's pretty good. And yeah, it's just like I felt the same way. I kind of felt the same way you did. I was like, oh man, if I start this, what if it bombs? And I was like, whatever, just get out there and do it. I've been lucky to have. I'm not really a big interviewer. I mean, I've been lucky to have Kathy and Rob actually, carry me through because, I don't know if you, I don't know if you listen to, I don't know if you know who the Fugees are, but like I'd say that guy down there, Rob Bass, he's actually the Wyclef Jean between the two of us. I'm Pras Michelle, and whenever
Hmm.
Kathy comes on, she's like Lauren Hill. I'm like, I'm more of a behind the scenes guy. But I figured, hey, I mean, if I'm gonna be the guy that created this, I might as well just put in some legwork as well too. Don't just be behind the scenes hiding. But yeah, that's great that you actually so wow, you started during a trying time because the pandemic. Well, in a way, you kind of started at the right time because the pandemic 2020 wrestling shows were canceled, so all the top names like couldn't say they were too busy because you know nobody no wrestling's going on, so you might as well just sit down and talk.
Yeah, it was a weird time because it's just see, it was a little bit after, basically since I started my show a little bit before the pandemic, I didn't necessarily think a lot about interviews until the pandemic happened. And then the more I kept posting about my podcast was like the more I started pulling in more friends on Facebook and other people who just so happen to be wrestlers too. So I was just like, okay, well, I guess maybe now would be a good time to try to, do interviews and stuff and figure out how to do that, And so um but then even before then, my very first guests, were friends of mine who were wrestling fans, because I didn't want to just limit, my interviews to just, big name people or people on the independents. Like I wanted to talk to the people, who were in my life who liked wrestling too, and sort of pick their brains and see what they had to say as well, because I try to make my podcast an open space for everyone who loves wrestling, or who might have loved wrestling in the past, or who might want to get back into it. And that's just not limited to, just superstars, but it's also for wrestling fans as well, and people who host things and people who create content for other places as well. So basically my first guest was a friend of mine, and it just started steamrolling from there. And then I started attracting um more wrestlers, the more I started ambling around on Facebook and just sort of sending messages to people to ask, do you want to come on my show? And they did. So it was a very trying time indeed, but it was also really grateful in the sense that these were people who were willing to talk and actually willing to give me a chance, even though they really didn't know me from a can of paint. But it was still fun regardless. So I loved it. It was great. I love it so much.
Wow, great minds think alike. Because that was the same thing. That was the same concept I had too for Ringside Society. I was like, you know, why not just do have the fans on too? And I actually got my idea from a, I guess I think it was Rob Feinstein, or I think it may have been. I don't know if you know who that is. Like I always call him the father of shoot interviews because he's the one that kind of started it, or that I know of that started it. And he did a thing where he approached a fan that I knew that I was familiar with that also knows me, and he was like, "Hey, I'm doing a documentary on wrestling fans across the country. Would you like to be part of it?" And the guy was like, "Yeah," and I was like, "That's a great idea to have like interview wrestling fans, regardless of whether they." And there's some popular wrestling fans, but like interview wrestling fans, and just get their take on certain events, get their stories and whatnot, and that's actually led me to actually interview even wrestlers because now, like for example, there was this one wrestling fan who showed up in Scooby Doo gear on AEW. AEW. I don't know if you ever saw that. If you ever saw that one, and the way
Uh-huh.
I think is like, if I see you wear something outlandish, I'm gonna want to talk to you. I'm not gonna make fun of you. I'm like, yo, I want to know what that guy or that girl's story is. Who are they? And that guy happened to have a brother, and his brother ended up training at the Nightmare Factory, which is ran by Cody Rhodes and QT Marshall. I interviewed him. He told me he's going to be training at Nightmare Factory. I said, once you graduate, let me know. We'll have you on the show as a main guest. He graduates and actually has the picture of him and his classmates. I'm like, okay, I'll have you on, but I want you to do me a favor. Let me know who those other people are because I want to have their stories on there too. And that's been a long. That's been a that pretty much opened a whole new world for us as well. So yeah, that's a great thing that you did too. I wish a lot more podcasts would actually consider interviewing the fans and so on. I mean, some of them do, but not like, I don't think it's on the scale like you and I do. And I'm not just trying to sound anyway. I'm just calling it the way I see it. But not and good on that. So let's talk about this. So you're actually a part of the wrestling industry. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, commentators are part of the wrestling industry. They count. I don't care what y'all say. If you would interview a Jim Ross or a Renee Paquette, then guess what? You should have no problem interviewing Queen Stephanie Hardy. And you might want to do it now because if she gets signed by WWE or AEW, you probably got to
Oh.
call her people and be like, "Hey," and she'd be like, "Yeah, we'll do lunch sometime and discuss it for a certain fee." So no, get them now. But yeah, so I once again, congratulations on getting that position. How did it happen? How'd you go from Queen Stephanie Hardy, the wrestling fan, to Queen Stephanie Hardy, Belladonna division commentator?
Oh man. Well, this is where more of those connections kind of tie in. Um I was posting on Instagram when I started my Instagram page, and I don't know if you've ever heard of this girl, but her name is Miranda Morales, and
Oh,
she
yep.
does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, y'all
She's
know
been
her.
on
Okay, good. Yeah, she does work in Arizona, and she actually found me one time, and so we connected, and she and I, message each other a lot of the time about wrestling stuff. And she's a ring announcer and basically a Jill of all trades in the podcasting game. And if anytime I have any type of questions about anything, I can just message her and ask her. Like, that's the kind of relationship we have, and I'm so happy to have that with her because she's amazing. And she messaged me randomly one day. I had just got off from work, and she messaged me one day and said that someone in Alabama is looking for a commentator. And I was just like, well, and weirdly enough, I had wrote this down in a notebook, like of all the things I could possibly do if wrestling were to become like my life's work. And I actually wrote down, well, maybe I could be a commentator or an interviewer or something. And this opportunity, just popped up, and I was just like, well, I guess it can't hurt anything, to try. So I messaged Casey, because I had her information. Miranda passed Casey's information on Facebook on to me. And I messaged Casey and told her, hey, I'm in Birmingham. I live in Birmingham. I have, a podcast, and just tell me what I need to do, or what if I need to apply or whatever. And so Casey was like, okay. So as I messaged her, she asked me, to send me like a clip or like an episode of her of a podcast. So I sent her the intro to my podcast, and the intro to my podcast is like maybe 35 seconds, at the most, like the trailer for it or whatever. And she listened to those 35 seconds and wanted me to be a commentator. And I was just like, for real? Like, are you serious? Like, are you joking me? Like, for real? And so that's how it worked. And we, messaged each other, and basically she put me in the thread, the message cluster and thread for all the talent. And I was able to, get as much information as possible, and do all my research on all the talent and everything. And anything I didn't get, I was able to get, the day of the event, and everything. And I was able to write everything down. And I was so nervous. And then I tried to do a modicum of what I imagined practicing would be, which was, I would put wrestling matches on mute on YouTube and just call it like I see it. And that's just what I try to do a lot of the time in terms of practicing for commentating, based off of what I've heard throughout the years of watching wrestling. Because the commentary is basically, they're the people who paint the picture for you at home. And these are people who have done wrestling, in various ways, and seen wrestling from various angles, as either workers themselves, or, as just people who have taught or whatever. And so I just knew I wanted to bring my A game, because I knew, since I'm a fan and a podcast host, I just wanted to put my best foot forward and practice my very best. And that's basically how it happened. I was really nervous the first time, but I had a really great partner in Scott Resner, the funeral director. He's my commentary bestie. He is the play by play, and I'm basically like the color commentator. And it is so great, because you're pulling on so many pieces of knowledge that you have, not only just in wrestling but also in pop culture as well. And it's just really fun, and I love doing it. And I'm just really grateful for Casey and also Veronica Fairchild for giving me that opportunity, because they didn't have to do that. They could have gotten someone who, has been within the business for like a long period of time, but they decided to take a chance on me, and I'll be forever grateful for them for that.
Yeah, yeah, that's really cool. It's funny how the wrestling industry is big, but it's a small world, because you mentioned Miranda Morales. We had her on the show, it was season 2, I think, when we were still on Block Talk. Ugh, they were good. They were good for what they were. I'm sorry, but I mean, ever since we started using StreamYard, I've been kind of spoiled and whatnot. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry about that. But uh, Miranda Morales, I remember she would like our stuff on Instagram, and I was like, this person followed us, not her liking. And then I saw she was a ring announcer, so I'm like, okay, ring announcers also make the wheel of wrestling go around. So guess what? We're gonna message her, and we're gonna have her on. Great person. She's over in Arizona, and it's funny because she mentioned that. Yeah, I saw you guys interview like couple of my friends over there. We'd actually interviewed people like Gino Rivera and Sky High and several other people that are making a name for themselves over in that part of the United States. And I was like, yeah, let's have you on. And then Casey, we actually had Casey on too. I believe Rob may have met her because Rob. I think she wrestles in your neck of the woods, right?
Well, she rests sometimes with 1CW, CCW, or whatever,
Yeah,
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I come
yeah,
across her, yeah, every now and again.
yeah. Rob here's a referee, and then we had a guy by the name of Mr. Grimm, and he told a story about her, about something that he had a road story about him and her, and we were like, okay, well, we got to get Casey on here and see what she has to say, and we had her on here, and yeah, really, really cool person. And yeah, that's great that she actually got to pick you and whatnot. So I saw that. I just have one more question because I know Rob is chomping at a bit. So I saw you at NWA Empower. Great, great pay-per-view, for lack of a better.
Yes.
Very memorable and a huge ode to women's wrestling. And I saw that you were there with some of the other heavy hitters like Ella J, Samira, and I forgot who else was there. But y'all were there and y'all were enjoying y'all. So how was that event for you?
Oh my God, that event, it lives rent free in my mind. That was almost like WrestleMania level of amazing. Not only as a fan but also as a broadcaster, and I was able to go there through Women's Wrestling Talk because Ella and Samira both are a part of the Women's Wrestling Talk network. And so, but they were working for their other sites that they work for, and I look up to them so much because they just be everywhere and they do so many things, and I just love them so much. And they were really supportive that weekend. And I was there with TK Trinidad, who is in charge of Women's Wrestling Talk, the CEO of Women's Wrestling Talk, and also Emily May Heller as well. So being there and a part of that weekend was so incredible because I love wrestling, but I definitely love women's wrestling. It is so close to my heart. So to be there, a part of something like that, and watching women not only you know, headline the entire show, but seeing so many men support them, but then also seeing women in charge of the show and producing the show and doing everything. It was just one of the most incredible feelings. It was almost like girl power on 1,000. It's kind of like when you sit there as a woman and you watch stuff like the Powerpuff Girls and you watch Charlie's Angels and you feel like swelling in your heart because all you see is you. That's basically what being in Empower felt like. And then being, a part of the red carpet action and interviewing people who made it happen, interviewing Mickey James, who I've watched on TV for years, and interviewing Awesome Kong, and just being next to her and having her make me laugh with all of her silliness because I was just so nervous. It was just so crazy. But and just interviewing her and so many different women like Sahara Seven and Renee Michelle and Deanna Parazzo. Like being a part of that weekend kind of just showed me what is possible for someone like me in terms of, me working in the business. Like I just couldn't believe it was all happening to me, but it was just incredible. It was such an incredible weekend. I almost didn't want it to end. But it was just so beautiful to be a part of and beautiful to watch. And there were so many women that I even saw wrestle for the first time, like Tootie Lynn, the little blue dragon, and Masha Slamovich, and legit Layla Hirsch. Like, and I even got to interview the Hex too, who are still the NWA Women's Tag Team Champions. Like meeting people and seeing women that talented of women like that was just incredible, and I'll never forget it. Because even now, I'll watch Impact now and watch AEW now and just be like, yeah, I saw that girl in Empower Weekend. I saw her there. I saw them there and all that. And it is just over the moon to see them and how they grow and what other opportunities they get to show themselves off and to just, oh, it was just amazing. So yeah. And then being at the Chase too, which is like a historic wrestling space in St. Louis, like being in that, atmosphere of history with the original NWA ring, it's just like a nerd out moment. It was just so great. But yeah, let me stop.
Shoot, you talk. I mean, I'm sure you've done this a dime a dozen because I mean, not dime a dozen, but several times because you're actually part of the industry. But I still can't believe I actually had dinner with the Hex one time. That had me. I was like,
Oh wow.
I'm just a regular fan. Like I'm not even a ring announcer. Like, but La Rosa Negro was like, yeah, you want to come hang with you want because she and I we go back. We're pretty cool with each other. We go back since like 2012, and she messaged me when I was in Japan on my last year of my tour over there, and she was like, yeah, you coming to the show? And I'm like, in July. In July, she's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I'll be in New York. We could probably catch lunch afterwards, catch up on old times, and went there. She was like, "Hey, Remy, you made it." I'm like, "Yeah, best of luck on your match. And it was a great show. It was Shine. I think it was Shine 59 or 58, one of those ones. And then she actually invited me to have dinner with her, Sienna, Marty Bell, and Marty Bell's family, because Marty Bell's from New York.
Mm-hmm.
She had a great turnout for her match. And yeah, I'm still like flabbergasted, like that they actually wanted me, regular fan, just to hang with them, just to have dinner with them. So yeah, that was a pretty cool moment. But yeah, I wish I could have made that Empower event. It looked really nice, and it looked great to see, like, our fellow commentators. Well, I can't even say fellow comment, not fellow commentators, but fellow content creators there as well. Covering the event and so on. And the crazy thing is, y'all actually, like, aside from TK Trinidad. I mean, TK Trinidad, yeah, she's the CEO, but all of y'all, you're commentator for Belladonna. Ella J is a commentator for CCW.
Mm-hmm.
Mira does backstage interviews for several promotions. It's like, wow, y'all are definitely winning, man. I really truly wish y'all all the best and whatnot. And y'all keep up the good work, man. Like, I'm very happy for y'all and y'all's success and whatnot. But enough of me rambling. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Rob. I know Rob has some questions for you. Rob Bass, go ahead, man. The floor is yours.
All right, sweet, thanks. So how are you doing today? How's your day been today?
Oh, it's been pretty good, just working and, just chilling out or whatever. So my day's been pretty good. It's a good Wednesday.
Well, that's good. Nothing too exciting, or crazy happened today.
No, not at all. It's just a regular Wednesday.
Well, that's good. That's good. I mean, keep the flow going. Get over that hump. You know what I mean? A couple more days. It's Friday. Weekends here, and then there you go.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask you about commentary and stuff. You're saying the first time you did it, you were nervous. Now, did the nerves still stay with you after that and all? Like, are you still do you got to pump yourself up before you go on there start commentating or anything like that? Because that's one of the things I would feel stressed out about is commentary. That's one of the things in wrestling, whatever. I'm like, I don't think I could do that. You know what I mean? Because I would just yell out the wrong name and mix up names and stuff. And I'm like, oh man, people want to beat me up in the back. It's like, oh man, no. But yeah, do you ever get that stress, or do you have your notes? Are you pretty good? Well prepared? Doing your thing.
Yeah, I try to be really well prepared, going into it, but even sometimes, even when you're looking at your notes, sometimes you can still, flub up or whatever, but then you just have to be sure to, go back and correct yourself. But yeah, those nerves still stay with me, because it's just like being a commentator, it's like especially in wrestling, it's like you're in such I don't want to call it rarefied air, but at the same time, it's still very rare because in the sense that there are so many people who have done commentary so well, and you want to be able to do the very best you can. Um, not to be exactly like them, but then also, just finding your groove to it, while also taking inspiration from people who have done it and are currently doing it on a professional level. So I do still get nervous, but I find that the more I stay prepared for it and the more I practice, the better I feel. And then plus on top of that, the thing that pumps me up the most before a show is just talking to the girls. Like talking to them, back in the locker room, it's almost like a really like it's like just talking to them and getting to know them and getting to hear what they want, put out about them and said about them and everything like that just makes me feel, as long as I have that information and as long as I gain their trust and I can take care of them and pay attention to them, at first, and then I go out into the table and take that information. Like that's really what pumps me up. It's the people. Like even not even just in commentary, but also in hosting. Like it's just the people that really make me want to do a good job. It's taking care of others, essentially, what you're doing. Like a lot of people in commentary might not, I mean, they probably do think about it that way. I can't speak for everyone, but I know for me, I try to think of it as me taking care of the talent and making them, look as good as possible while also making myself look good too. Cause yeah. So
That's
yeah.
right. You gotta do that. Hey, you gotta do that. Yeah, ring announcing is probably, yeah, that's probably, but what I can do, what I mean, commentary is like, no, I'm good, what I mean, yeah, I'll leave that to y'all professionals or whatever, what I mean, because I'd probably have to get somebody, we gotta get the right chemistry, and what I mean, I might just be like, oh man, this person was crazy, oh man, all right, whatever, but So when is y'all's next show? Do you have one coming up this weekend, this month, or yeah, I guess this weekend is the last of one month, or next month or something?
Yeah, I don't know. We did just have an event in Illinois. Sadly, I wasn't able to go to that one or commentate for that one, but we did have our event Exodus in conjunction with IWA Productions as well. We have a partnership with them. We were able to have Nyla Rose come and do like a meet and greet. And Cassandra Golden did lose her Forbidden Elegance title to Kylan King. So she's our new Forbidden Elegance champion, and we do have Shalante Royal, who I believe is still IWA Belladonna Women's Champion as well. So we have an amazing lineup of women, who come to wrestle for us. We've had Valentina Loca, we've had Eva Lise, we've had Jordan Grace come and wrestle. We even had Jazz even last year during her retirement tour. So as far as a more recent show that's coming up, that has yet to be announced. But I'm pretty sure once it is announced, you'll see me posting about it and getting the word out and everything. So yeah. But every show we've had has just been amazing. The turnout has been amazing. So hopefully we can just keep that momentum going.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I hope y'all do too. And keep expanding. Going everywhere. I mean, doing your thing or whatever. So do you usually travel to to the shows or whatever? Like you said, it was in last show was in Illinois. Do you
Hmm.
usually travel to wherever they're at if you're able to?
Yes, I do, because mostly since the Belladonna division is mostly based in Alabama, and Alabama is where I'm from. So
Hmm.
I live in Birmingham, and the Belladonna division is usually held in Gaston, and that's about 2 hour, maybe an hour or two away from me. So that's not that far for me at all. Like that's just a highway, like a little bit of a road trip. So it's really not
Yeah.
that far. But usually when they go to Illinois, sometimes, I try to go, but then really that was the first time the Belladonna division had been in Illinois, because most of our shows have been mostly in Alabama. But hopefully next time they go out of town, I'll be able to make it, and then you'll hear my voice on Fight TV. But the commentators were able to hold it down from what I heard. So I'll try to do a better job of traveling,
Oh
because
no,
that
that's
is an
all good.
experience that I want to have.
Yeah, I was just wondering because I was going to ask, doing that traveling, down there in the South, they have y'all have some crazy critters and creatures down there, like, have there been any crazy travel stories? Like, have you ran into something, supernatural or a Bigfoot or something, on your travels down there?
Not at all.
Okay.
Considering I've lived here my whole life, and then I sort of live in sort of the city part.
Hmm.
Um, and then it's like Gadsden, where we have our events at the Gadsden Mall. That's still very much the city part. I haven't really seen anything crazy. But that's not to say that crazy stuff isn't out there though, because Alabama is a big state. But as far as I know, like I haven't ran into anything, that crazy or cuckoo or whatever.
Because
We're pretty
my mom and dad, they were just down there. They were in Floribama,
Yeah,
Floribama. Yeah,
that's
they're down
further
over that.
down.
Yeah, they were down over that way and all. And I remember they were flying down there like we're going in a different time zone. What I mean, we're going to be an hour going an hour back in time. I was like, word up, So yeah, they said they had fun there. They didn't see any crazy creatures out there or whatever. But I was like, all right. They heard about the Crichton leprechaun. I was like, oh man, I was like that was on Tosh Point oh, like like 10, 12 years ago. He's like, I never heard about that. And I was like, that's because you're in your 60s, pop.
Yeah, I've never heard about that either, actually. So I guess we learned something new.
Yeah, it was somebody just like was drunk and telling stories, and a reporter was there, and they drew a sketch, and it was like literally like I can't draw, I can draw stick figures, it was basically just a stick figure with like a leprechaun hat on. And they're like, yeah, the Crichton leprechaun. And it's like y'all gonna put that on there, nobody could go through that and be like, yeah, nah, we're good. You know what I mean? Oh man. So, when you're not doing wrestling, practicing your commentary, doing all that stuff, and you're just relaxing, are there any new movies and TV shows you're into? Because I'm always caught up, watching the same comfort shows, over and over again. I'm always trying to branch out and find something new.
Well, the shows I've been watching mostly is the Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, because that's of course like the reboot of the original Proud Family show on the Disney Channel. I've been watching that a lot. It usually comes out on, every Wednesday since February, but they didn't have a new episode today, which was kind of strange, but it's okay. I'll let them slide. Um and I've also been watching Succession on HBO Max. That's something that my boyfriend turned me on to because normally I don't watch shows that are very businessy at all because I'm kind of into, like comedies or romantic stuff and stuff like that. Because my favorite shows are like Grey's Anatomy and Scandal and, just, like stuff like that. But watching Succession is really interesting because you're kind of seeing, this family sort of fight for, they're jockeying for position, in their father's business. And it's really interesting to say the least to see these rich people who have it all but don't have, the basic things that a human needs in order to feel fulfilled. So yeah, that's kind of what's interesting about it. We've been watching that together. And I just finished Euphoria a couple of weeks ago as well, and that was really interesting. Like, I love Zendaya, so watching that, was just an experience in and of itself. But I love the show, and I hate that I have to wait so long for the next season. But hey, they're booked and busy, so I can't blame them. So yeah, that's basically what I do. And I also watch YouTube videos, like video essays on certain things that I have watched before and stuff, just to hear people's opinion about it. So that's kind of what I do to relax. So yeah.
I haven't seen Succession yet. I've heard it's good. The one I've been watching on HBO is the Righteous Family or whatever. It's got like Danny McBride, John Goodman, and all. And they're like
The Righteous
they're church.
Gemstones?
Yeah, the Righteous Gemstones. Yes,
Yeah, I've
that
heard
show
about
is.
that.
Oh, that show is great. I'm like, oh man, these people are so. They're into the church. They're like those super church people. Like what do you
Oh
call them?
wow.
Mega church. You know what I mean? Where they get on the private jets and fly around the country and around the world.
Oh
Spreading God
wow.
or whatever they do. You know what I mean? Those type of people. Yeah, but they are so messed up and behind the scenes and all. It's like, oh my God. It's wild. I've been into that. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
But
I also
Succession, I'm
did
definitely
watch
gonna have to check it out.
yeah, I also did finish the first season of Peacemaker too. That was really
Ooh,
good.
yes, that was yeah. Cena was killed it in that. Yes,
He
I'm waiting
did.
for season two. I'm waiting for season two. I'm excited.
Mhm.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, before I don't want to take up too much of your time or whatever, but I do want to say, thank you very much for coming, taking the hot time out of your busy schedule, coming on the podcast, chat with us. It was awesome to hear about your commentary adventures and how you got into the business and all that good stuff. You know what I mean? And I wish you nothing but the best, in your future endeavors. I hope you, start commentating all around the world. You know what I mean? Doing your thing. We hear you on national TV, one day, and be like, oh, there we go. That's right. We had her on the podcast one time. Yeah, I know her.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. Like, I'm really happy I was able to make time to come on here. Yeah, I'm just happy that you guys have your platform and you guys are doing what you guys do. Which is really great. Like, there's room for all of us at the table of wrestling, and I'm just so happy to be here. I'm always happy to be on other people's shows. Like, it's nice. So yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, you're welcome. And we look forward to seeing the next, Belladonna division pay-per-view as well. We'll definitely be tuned in. But like what Rob said, man, hey, we've had people on this show that have actually gone on to be on TV. And I'm not talking like, oh, they made a one-off appearance. Like we had Roxy. Roxy signed to the NXT. Uh,
Yeah.
Cameron Burnett, now known as Amari Miller, she signed to NXT. AQA was signed to NXT, and now she's on AEWs. And we had another guy, Danny Limelight. He's signed to MLW. So I mean, hey, it could happen. Then we hear a voice like, wait a minute, that's Queen Stephanie Hardy. We just had her on today. What? Rob, you see this? Kathy, you see this? Yeah, but yeah, we definitely wish you all the best and whatnot. And keep on doing the great work and so on. So before we shut this show down, where can fans find you on social media when they want to find out what show you're commentating on next? When they want to purchase Queen Stephanie Hardy merchandise or Hardy Wrestling Podcast merchandise, and where can bookers and promoters find you when they want to book you for their shows?
Okay, well, all of you guys can find me, Stephanie Hardy, your girl, on Instagram and Twitter at Queen Steph Hardy, just like it's on the bottom of the screen right there. And you can follow the Hardy Wrestling Podcast, well, the Hardy Wrestling Podcast on Instagram at Hardy Wrestling Podcast on Instagram and on Twitter at Hardy Wrestle Pod. And you can listen to the show everywhere you get your podcasts, and of course support the Belladonna division streaming on Fight TV, and also follow them on Twitter at Belladonna Diviz, and on Facebook at The Belladonna Division, and on Instagram at Belladonna Division. And you can follow Women's Wrestling Talk at WW Talk Pod on Instagram and Twitter, and visit our website and see all of our amazing shows. And of course, you can also buy some of my Hardy Wrestling Podcast merch on T Public. You can follow that as well and buy you shirts, masks, mugs, notebooks, all of the above. You can buy that. And you can email me and book me, and stuff on Hardy Wrestling Podcast at gmail.com, or just DM me on Instagram and Twitter, because that's usually the fastest way to find me, because I will answer, because my phone is always on my person. So yeah, that's basically everywhere you can find me or follow me.
Awesome. So y'all make sure y'all follow this incredible young woman. She's doing great things as a commentator and also as a podcast too. And you know, make sure you cop her merch as well too. She has some sweet merch. I've seen it myself too.
Oh,
So
thank
definitely make
you.
sure you check out her stuff and whatnot. And support indie wrestling. This is how you support indie wrestling. It's tuning into the shows, checking out the podcasts. You know, check out the show she's commenting on. That's where 99%, 95% of your AEW and WB stars come from. So why not support them before they get big? So
Yeah,
definitely
and
support.
oh, I got one more thing to say. Also, vote for the Hardy Wrestling Podcast for Alabama Podcast of the Year at the Alabama Music Awards. The links are all in my social media bios. Please vote for me for that award, because I really do want it. And you can vote as many times as you want. So yeah.
Yeah, y'all definitely do that, man. That's just think about when she win, you be like, "Hey, we up, man! You don't won the Alabama, podcast award or whatnot, man. Big ups, man. Glad I could help. So yeah, man, it's always a good feeling to, help somebody out that's working hard. You know what I'm saying? So definitely go ahead, give her a vote. She works hard at this. She doesn't do this just for fame and whatnot. She did this is her passion. So definitely check out, her podcast. As a matter of fact, she actually had don't tell me, Aubrey Edwards on her show. So
Yes.
yeah, just a lot of great stuff there. So definitely check her out. But with that being said, it's about time for us to shut this show down. My stomach is rumbling, my eyelids are heavy, and today's Wednesday, so it's dynamite. So that means it's time for some dynamite, a nap, and a snack, or maybe not in that order. But before I partake in those activities, Rob Bass, my brother from another mother, the Tommy to my Ghost, the Charlie Haas to my Shelton Benjamin, and the Sean Spence to my Burton Guster. Where can fans find you on social media when they want to talk wrestling, find out where your next opponent, find out where your next show is, purchase Rob Bass merchandise, and where can bookers and promoters find you when they want to book you for their shows?
All right, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch at Rob_Base82, and then Facebook, YouTube, Rob Base. And one CCW, I think the next show is May 23rd, something like that. So yeah, somewhere around there, end of May. I'll get the dates to you next show, or
So
when I find it.
I'm gonna plug this right now to shout out to my boy Marcello, who actually runs CCW. This upcoming month, not this month, this month's dead, April's dead. Next month, my birth month, May, is the Capital Cup. You're gonna see, and it's for CCW, and you're gonna see a lot of tag teams that you've never seen before, tag team combinations that you've never seen before, competing for this cup. You have tag teams like one of the gosh, and I'm probably gonna get they're probably gonna either beat you up or beat me up for this, Rob. But there's a tag team in there, and I'm not even gonna call names, but the Renegade Twins might want to watch out. And yeah, but
Watch out, Renegade Twins.
there's a lot of new tag teams there that you have not seen before. Check it out. It's gonna be epic. It's gonna be unforgettable. CCW's doing it big, and I pretty much wish I was in Delaware. I'm actually kind of jealous of Rob because Rob is right around the corner. I got to take a bus and a train and whatever Uber I could find to get there. But definitely check out CCW if you can't make it there in person, and check out 1CW. They're pretty good too. If you can't check out those shows in person, check them out on YouTube. Check them out on Title Match Network. You won't regret it. But if you want to find me on social media, not that I have anything cool to say these days, but who knows, maybe you get lucky and hear me say something cool. You could find me on Twitter at the Remy Blue. You can also find me on Instagram at the Remy Blue, and I'm also on Facebook under the alias Remy Blue. You guessed it. Our podcast is also on social media. We're on Twitch as at Ringside Society 2019. We're on Instagram and Twitter at Ringside Society. We also have a Facebook group called Ringside Society, of course. We're on Spotify, Block Talk Radio, and we are also on YouTube where you can find a lot of our content. We have great interviews like this one. We also had Ella J on our show, Katie Hebner, Kylie King, the Renegade Twins, undeniable Michael Martinez, who's the brother of Damian Priest, the assassin AK-47, who's the cousin of Fuego del Sol. Many other cool people, many great interviews. Definitely make sure you're following us on YouTube. If you're not, then go on YouTube. Check out, type in Ringside Society. Once you see that sweet OMG dark blue yin yang sign, dark blue and light blue yin yang sign with the blue flames around it, that's when you know it's us. So make sure you subscribe to all of our videos because you don't want to miss a thing like Aerosmith in 1998. But with that being said, and one more thing, we also have a Teespring store where we sell official Ringside Society merchandise. We have T-shirts, long sleeve shirts, tank tops for the summer, hoodies. We even have coffee mugs for your favorite warm beverage. So make sure you check us out, cop some merch. All proceeds go back into keeping this show afloat. We're also working on a special shirt for the referees. We hope y'all like this. This is dedicated to y'all. But we got something planned for another T-shirt at under the Ringside Society banner. But with that being said, we just want to thank everybody that tuned in tonight live. Thank you very much. We pride ourselves on being one of the best podcasts to bring you some of the best wrestling content. And to those y'all that are going to listen to us later on, thank you very much in advance. And those y'all that hate us, can't stand us, really and truly wish we'd go away, well, like myself at the Golden Corral and Rob Bass at the Taco Festival, we ain't going anywhere for a while.
They hate us because they ain't us.
And we ain't stopping. But with that being said, we just want everybody to know that we're very well aware that everybody and their grandparents and their parents have a podcast. But we're not your grandparents' podcast. We're not your parents' podcast. As a matter of fact, we're not just any podcast. Hey, yo, Rob Bass, one time for the mind, one time for the people, one time for the wrestling culture, one time for the Belladonna division, and one time for Hardy Wrestling podcast creator, Queen Stephanie Hardy.
Woo!
What type of podcast are we?
We're the Wrestling Fans Podcast.
That's right, we're the Wrestling Fans Podcast, Ringside Society. I will be back. We'll be back this Friday with another impressive episode with another impressive guest. But until then, we just want y'all to do 4 favors for us. Stay safe, stay healthy, be excellent to each other, and party on, dudes. We out. Peace.
See y'all. Good night. Stay classy, Delaware.
Bye.